Imagine this. In the dead of night, thousands of ships silently cross the ocean, aircraft carriers slicing through waves, while enemy submarines lurk unseen below. The United States had never faced a threat like this before, but they survived. Now, decades later, the same lessons learned in those brutal battles are quietly shaping America's strategy in the Persian Gulf, a region where conflict with Iran could erupt at any moment. World War II was more than a battle between nations. It was a global testing ground for strategies, tactics, and the very future of warfare. The United States entered the war in 1941 after the shocking attack on Pearl Harbor, a moment that forever changed how America approached threats abroad. But beyond the immediate horror and destruction, World War II taught lessons that still influence U.S. military doctrine today. Lessons that could determine how America responds if tensions with Iran escalate into conflict. During World War II, the United States faced multiple fronts simultaneously, from the Pacific against Japan to Europe against Germany. The military had to innovate on an unprecedented scale. Naval power became a decisive factor, with aircraft carriers replacing battleships as the dominant force at sea. The U.S. Navy learned how to project power across thousands of miles, striking with precision while maintaining supply lines. Fast forward to today, and the Persian Gulf presents similar logistical and strategic challenges. Just like the Pacific Islands of World War II, the Strait of Hormuz is a choke point that controls global oil shipments. Controlling it means projecting power effectively, something the U.S. has practiced for decades. Air superiority was another critical lesson. During the war, the United States Air Force, then part of the Army Air Corps, developed strategies for long-range bombing, close air support, and rapid deployment of fighter squadrons. These innovations weren't just technical, they were doctrinal. The U.S. learned how to dominate the skies, a lesson still applied today. In any potential Iran conflict, air dominance would be crucial, not only for offensive operations but also for protecting naval assets and securing key positions. World War II also taught the United States the importance of intelligence and code breaking. The breaking of Japan's codes, most famously the JN-25 Naval Code, allowed the U.S. to anticipate enemy movements at Midway, turning the tide of the war. Fast forward to modern times, the U.S. employs a sophisticated web of satellites, drones, and cyber intelligence to track Iran's military capabilities. Lessons from the 1940s remain embedded in these systems. Anticipate, decode, and strike decisively before the enemy can react. Another enduring lesson was the critical role of alliances. In World War II, the U.S. forged partnerships with the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and numerous other nations to fight a global conflict. Today, alliances such as NATO, and strategic partnerships in the Middle East, enable the United States to operate in regions far from home. Iran, while geographically distant from the U.S., sits in a region where America's alliances amplify its strategic reach. The principle remains unchanged: strong allies multiply a nation's power. The industrial capacity developed during World War II also left a lasting imprint on American military strategy. The United States mobilized entire cities to produce ships, planes, tanks, and weapons. This production mindset, fast, scalable, and efficient, remains central to U.S. military planning. If conflict arises in the Persian Gulf, the U.S. could theoretically ramp up production and logistics to meet unforeseen demands, just as it did during World War II. However, perhaps the most crucial lesson of all was the concept of decisive action. In World War II, hesitation often meant defeat, while bold, calculated strikes often turned the tide. From the D-Day invasion in Normandy to the island-hopping campaign in the Pacific, America learned that timing and initiative are everything. In a modern context, this principle continues to guide U.S. strategy toward Iran, understanding the enemy's vulnerabilities, striking at the right moment, and sustaining momentum. By examining these historical lessons, it becomes clear that the shadow of World War II looms large over modern American military planning. The same principles that once defeated global superpowers now quietly inform how the U.S. prepares for potential conflict in the Persian Gulf. And while the specifics have changed, drones instead of biplanes, cyber operations instead of codebooks, the foundational strategies remain the same. But lessons alone don't tell the whole story. How exactly is the United States applying these World War II strategies to a modern opponent like Iran? And what does that mean for global stability if a conflict suddenly ignites? Part 2 reveals the tactics that bring history into the present, and the chilling possibilities that could unfold in the Middle East. The world watches nervously. Every satellite image, every naval movement, every intercepted communication could be a warning sign. America's military strategy against Iran isn't just built on modern technology, it's a direct descendant of the battles fought 80 years ago. And understanding that lineage might reveal just how prepared, or how dangerous, a confrontation could become. World War II did not just teach the United States how to fight, it taught America how to plan for unpredictability. The military learned that no battle unfolds exactly as expected. Commanders had to anticipate worst-case scenarios, adapt quickly, and deploy forces where they were most effective. Today, these lessons are central to U.S. strategy in the Persian Gulf. Military planners run simulations that borrow heavily from World War II operational thinking, using historical patterns to predict enemy behavior, supply chain vulnerabilities, and strategic choke points. One clear example is the focus on naval power. In World War II, aircraft carriers replaced battleships as the dominant naval asset because they could strike from hundreds of miles away, providing unmatched flexibility. In the Persian Gulf, this same principle applies. The U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, stationed in Bahrain, includes aircraft carriers, destroyers, and submarines capable of projecting force rapidly across the region. Like the island-hopping campaigns of the Pacific, American naval planners use these assets to control key waterways, defend allies, and maintain strategic initiative. Air operations continue to reflect World War II doctrine. Long-range precision strikes, electronic warfare, and rapid deployment of fighter squadrons are all rooted in lessons from the 1940s. The U.S. Air Force has refined these strategies with modern technology, but the core principle remains: control the skies to control the battlefield. In a potential conflict with Iran, air dominance would be essential to limit the effectiveness of enemy missiles, drones, and anti-air systems, just as it was crucial to protect naval convoys in World War II. Cyber intelligence, another modern tool, has its philosophical roots in World War II code-breaking. During the war, American cryptologists at Bletchley Park and stateside installations decoded Japanese and German communications, providing real-time tactical advantages. Today, satellites, drones, and cyber networks form the backbone of intelligence gathering. Analysts study patterns, intercept communications, and map military infrastructure, following the same principle that guided World War II codebreakers: knowledge is power, and surprise can decide wars. Furthermore, the concept of rapid deployment has become a hallmark of U.S. military strategy. In World War II, troops and equipment had to be moved across oceans quickly to respond to emerging threats. Today, this is mirrored in the ability to mobilize aircraft, ships, and special operations forces anywhere in the world within hours or days. The logistical challenges of supplying forces in remote theaters echo those faced by the U.S. military in WWII's Pacific campaigns, and they influence strategic decision-making in any modern potential Iran confrontation. America's historical emphasis on alliances also shapes modern strategy. During World War II, coordinating with allies allowed the U.S. to focus power efficiently while sharing risk. In the Persian Gulf, partnerships with regional powers, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others, mirror this principle. Intelligence sharing, joint exercises, and strategic basing give the U.S. leverage that rivals like Iran cannot easily match, demonstrating that the lessons of global cooperation from World War II remain highly relevant. Even the psychological dimension of warfare traces back to the Second World War. World War II taught that morale, perception, and propaganda could influence outcomes as much as guns and bombs. Modern operations against Iran consider this as well, from public messaging to tactical deception. The U.S. military plans not only to fight battles but also to shape perceptions in the region and globally, ensuring that history's lessons on the human side of warfare are applied alongside cutting-edge technology. Finally, the industrial lessons of World War II continue to inform strategy. America's ability to scale production rapidly and supply forces with advanced equipment remains a decisive advantage. The Pentagon's wartime logistics planning borrows directly from the playbooks of World War II mobilization, ensuring that any extended conflict, even in a geographically challenging region like the Persian Gulf, would not be constrained by lack of resources. But strategies alone do not predict outcomes. Modern warfare is a deadly game of innovation, psychology, and timing. The final question remains, if history repeats itself, how exactly would a potential conflict with Iran unfold? Part 3 dives into the chilling scenarios, the decisive moves, and the lessons from World War II that could shape the future of global security. Every movement in the Persian Gulf could trigger a chain reaction. A single miscalculation, a misunderstood signal, or a rapid deployment could escalate into a conflict that reshapes the Middle East. And behind every strategy, every deployment, every plan, the shadow of World War II is quietly guiding America's hand. The lessons of World War II are not just historical footnotes, they are active templates guiding the United States' approach to modern potential conflicts. Analysts often draw parallels between the island-hopping campaigns of the Pacific and the logistical challenges of operations in the Persian Gulf. The principles remain startlingly consistent. Control choke points, maintain air superiority, secure supply lines, and strike decisively when the enemy is most vulnerable. In any scenario involving Iran, naval operations would likely take center stage. The Strait of Hormuz is a modern strategic choke point comparable to the Pacific Islands during World War II. Control of this narrow waterway would allow the U.S. to protect allies, project power, and ensure global energy security. Submarines, aircraft carriers, and destroyers would play a role reminiscent of the decisive naval campaigns of 1942 to 1945, reflecting the enduring applicability of historical lessons. Air power, too, would be central. Precision strikes, drone operations, and electronic warfare would dominate the battlefield, echoing the decisive role of air dominance during World War II. Fighter squadrons would respond rapidly to threats, and advanced intelligence would ensure that strikes are not only effective but also timely. The principle learned during World War II remains clear. Dominate the skies, and you dominate the conflict. Cyber operations add a modern twist, but the principle is the same as World War II codebreaking. Anticipate, disrupt, and exploit vulnerabilities. By monitoring Iran's communication networks, missile systems, and military infrastructure, U.S. forces aim to replicate the strategic advantage that intelligence provided during historical conflicts. Every intercepted signal, every satellite image, every simulation feeds into the larger strategic plan, a modern echo of the lessons learned from Pacific and European theaters. The U.S. military's focus on alliances and partnerships is another World War II lesson in action. Just as coordination with the British and Soviets amplified America's strength in 1944, contemporary alliances allow the U.S. to multiply force projection in the Middle East. Joint exercises, forward bases, and intelligence sharing ensure that the operational model is not just hypothetical but actionable. The principle remains the same. A network of allies strengthens the hand of a single nation. Industrial capability, another World War II lesson, ensures that the United States can sustain prolonged operations if needed. Modern military logistics are faster, more precise, and more adaptable than ever, but the core idea remains. A nation's ability to equip, supply, and maintain forces can determine the outcome of any conflict. In the Persian Gulf, this capability could be decisive. Finally, the most sobering lesson from World War II is about timing and initiative. Delays, hesitation, or underestimation of the enemy proved disastrous in the past. In modern potential conflicts with Iran, rapid decision-making informed by decades of historical insight is likely the best chance to control escalation. Military planners study World War II campaigns not as history but as living templates, extracting the principles that could guide modern victories or prevent catastrophic mistakes. The world watches cautiously. The Persian Gulf remains a powder keg where even minor incidents could trigger broader conflict. Yet, the United States is not entering unprepared. Behind every naval maneuver, every air patrol, every cyber operation, the lessons of World War II are quietly at work, reminding the world that history not only informs the present but may shape the very outcome of the next major conflict. History has a way of repeating itself, but sometimes the most dangerous battles are the ones we never see coming. If America and Iran were to clash tomorrow, it would not be the first time history has taught a deadly lesson, but it could be the first time it's applied in ways the world has never seen.